Hey, yeah, Impending Doom put out their album not too long ago.
Death Will Reign.
When was it?
November 5th.
It was then, so we're doing it now. And, Impending Doom. How do you feel about Impending Doom as a band?
As a band, I'd say a year and a half ago, I was really, 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 really into deathcore and metalcore as a whole. And now there's just kind of select bands that I enjoy. And Impending Doom to me is kind of hit or miss. I really don't like their first two albums, Nailed, Dead, Risen, and The Serpent's Servant? Something like that.
Yeah.
I always get it backwards and mixed up. But I really dig There Will Be Violence. I don't know why everybody hates on that album. I did not like their most recent one, Baptized in Filth. So, I mean, and I was interested in this album. I saw the artwork and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. But I was also interested, it's only been a year and a half since they put out Baptized in Filth. That came out in 2012. And so I really wanted to hear it. And to me, they're a hit or miss. Sometimes they can be really heavy, and I think when they're really heavy, it's when they're at their best. So overall, as a band, I do enjoy Impending Doom. And what's your thoughts on Impending Doom before we get into the album?
Like Tyler, some time ago, I was a lot more into deathcore, and it was cool. It was heavy. I was a teenager, and it was violent, angry music and stuff. But
You still are.
well, technically, but I mean, I was in high school and everything, and now it's just, it's not like I've grown up a lot, but I'm just into different types of music now. I'm not so much into deathcore, but when I was into Impending Doom, they were one of my favorite deathcore bands. But kind of like Tyler said, pretty much not anymore, not so much. Their last album, Baptized in Filth, it didn't appeal to me too much. But I would say out of all their albums, There Will Be Violence was probably the only, I don't know how you could say it. It was the only seashell in the sand for me.
Yes. So, getting into their new album, Death Will Reign, it starts off with the song Ravenous, and then it keeps pounding you. It goes to till death. Oh my god! It goes to Death Will Reign, the title track. There's also other really good songs. Doomsday, Hellhole, and it ends with an 8-minute track called The Great Divine. And as a whole, the first time I heard Ravenous and Doomsday and Death Will Reign, as I was listening to this album, I was just like, oh my god, this is so heavy. I'm not saying this revolutionizes anything. I'm not saying this is the heaviest album in the world. There's obviously some really heavy deathcore bands out there, like Whitechapel or something like that, or Fit for an Autopsy, or as much say what you will about them. Oceano is a very heavy band, and I know there's some really really heavy brutal death metal bands out there and stuff. There's a lot of heavy music out there, but this I just felt was I felt it was the best part about it. It's just being so heavy and yes. There's not too many riffs on here. Most of the riffs are, they have these very down-tuned guitars, and they're mostly played on the lower strings. And there's your fair amount of breakdowns. But I feel when you take certain songs as a whole, such as Death Will Reign or Hellhole or something, they're kind of good in my mind. That's just how I feel. I actually enjoy it, and I'm not one to really, listen to deathcore a whole lot anymore. There's been their fair share of bands this year that have put out pretty decent albums. Dark Sermon, Thy Art Is Murders. I enjoyed their albums. I enjoyed Fit for an Autopsy's recent one. And Impending Doom, this album's not bad at all. Except I feel there's a couple issues that I have with it. And one is how it's still trying to stick to this mold of being deathcore. Take the ending of Death Will Reign, where there's this actually kind of cool build up, I felt, and then it just goes to this slow breakdown, and they yell Death Will Reign. I just feel like certain moments like that, I'm just like, they're not really needed. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, they might get the pit going live or something, but they're not needed. They're just fitting this style, and they're not breaking out of it. Another thing is that, I mean, I've been saying how this album's half pretty decent, and it's not that bad, but after a while, the breakdowns start to wear down on you, and you're just kind of like, whatever. I'm not feeling this song, but certain songs do stand out, and just sometimes, too many breakdowns are too many breakdowns. You just want to put on something epic or something that has a lot of really good riffs after a while. And then the final thing is the vocalist, Brooke Reeves, I believe his name is. He's a good vocalist, I feel, and at times he really, really works well. He's improved his high screams in my mind. He has some really, really nice guttural lows and stuff, but I feel that he hasn't really improved much over the past few albums. It's kind of the same Brooke Reeves. I mean, you take, Alex Cole or Phil Bozeman or hell, Adam Warren of Oceano. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the most recent album, he kind of improved as a vocalist. And I just feel that Brooke Reeves, while he's gotten, definitely better from their earlier stuff, I just feel that the improvement is a little bit minimal on this album. But as a whole, it's not a bad album. It's a good listen if you're a deathcore fan. If you just want to put out something that's just fucking heavy, it's kind of slow, this is a pretty good album for that. It's something that's just heavy, something that's nasty, something that just sits there and you just cringe your teeth like this and you make the Alex Bond face. You just, yes. I mean, there's some moments on here that are just gritty and dirty and disgusting, and I love it. And those are the moments that are best. When they're extremely heavy, that's when they're at their best. That's my thoughts on this album. What about yours?
Well, definitely the first thing you'll notice about it is how heavy it is. I mean, it should be the first thing you notice about it, but in my opinion, that was really all there was to it. It was a heavy album, and like Tyler said, not a lot of riffing and stuff. I mean, yeah, it's not like you have to have riffing. There's no requirements for music. But it's just, I mean, take away the heaviness of it, and there's just not a lot to it.
I agree with that.
I mean, the heaviness is cool, and that makes, a lot of the album. And I'd like to see them play some of these songs live. That would be cool, but, I mean, deathcore has run its course for me for the most part, and I still want to give this a fair review and everything, but it's hard to get excited about it. I mean, that's one of the things that definitely takes away, and it's just deathcore in general, this genre, this sort of area of music, and area, what did I want to say?
Style.
Area works. Or style, yeah. It's just that you have to take that into account, and that factors in on how interesting an album can be. And if I want, it seems as though it's heavy like the Acacia Strain, and if you like the Acacia Strain, this may be heaviness that you would like. And some parts sort of, I thought, reminded me of Fit for an Autopsy. So if you like the Acacia Strain, Fit for an Autopsy, your general heavier deathcore bands and everything, this is cool. I mean, it's a good album in that respect. And the tone that they're using for their guitars is absolutely sick. And how down-tuned they've gotten, it's heavy. I mean, it's heavy. And, but the thing is, that's cool, but it's all surface appeal. Just from... the two songs I listened to when I was here with Tyler, yeah, I listened to more of the album elsewhere. But the two songs that two and a half, I guess, maybe a little more than two, songs that I listened to here, it's just, you take away that heavy factor and, it is what it is. It's just deathcore as it's always been, but I think definitely the shiner on this is just how heavy it is, and they did a wonderful job at making a heavy album, and I mean that's what it is to me. I'm sorry if people like this. Yeah, it's heavy. That's cool, but at least in my opinion, there should be more beneath that heaviness, beneath that surface appeal. But I would have to listen to it over and over and over again to find any appeal to it that's not just the heaviness. And I don't feel like I want that chore. But for what it is, it's a heavy album. There's some very groovy parts to it. It's some blast beating and stuff. Some very, bendy, heavy riffs. And, that's about the extent of it. Like Tyler's saying, Brooke he's a good vocalist. But I've always thought, at least with this album, that the music itself is just a little too heavy for his vocals. If they got a heavier vocalist, like, even if they brought in Adam Warren on guest vocals or something, it would work. It would be, titanically heavy. But he is a good vocalist. I felt he did a good job on this. Some of his lows reminded me of Nate Johnson, Fit for an Autopsy. He was a good vocalist. His highs, like Tyler said, definitely gotten better. But, this album is just kind of, it is what it is to me. Any more in deathcore, you need to really have something, that no one else has. And they have the heaviness, but, that's all, like I said, surface appeal. But, heavy album, just, below the ice, there's not much there.
I do agree with that. I'm not saying this album, rejuvenates deathcore, or that any of the bands that I've mentioned, in this video, like Dark Sermon or Die Hard is Murder, something rejuvenates deathcore. Deathcore is kind of, like Sam said, it's kind of run its course. It's kind of, only a select few survived in my mind, and I don't even think the great bands like, Whitechapel, or the popular ones like Whitechapel or Suicide Sons or something can even bring deathcore back to, how popular it used to be. It's just, this is just an okay album. I mean, it's good, and it has some decent songs to it, but even those are just, they're good. And I can't say anything more than that. But as a whole, it's kind of okay.
Yeah, like deathcore isn't absolutely dead. There's still deathcore bands all over the place putting out albums and stuff, and unknown deathcore bands, and even the popular ones like Whitechapel. They're still making music. If you still consider them, they still have their deathcore roots and everything, and they're still sort of deathcore band, I guess. But it's not a dead genre. It's just nothing new is being done.
Right.
It's still kind of all.
It's
what
like
it is.
They're kind of taking what's been done before, putting it in different song arrangements, and just executing it maybe a little bit better than they did the last album or something.
Yeah, and the heavy guitar tone is definitely the star of this album. Like you'll be amazed at how heavy it is. But
it's very clean and nice production. This album.
Yeah, but I mean that's.
What would you give this album?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, it's interesting.
Be brutal with your score because this album's brutal.
It's interesting to an extent. And if you love deathcore, then this is all for you. Yep. But at least for me, I mean, it's okay. It has its moments, and my voice just raised there. And it's kind of weird, but I don't know. 7 is interesting enough, but 7, just because of the heaviness to it. The heaviness is such a good factor. You will dig how heavy this is. But 7, just because it's just enough interesting. It's because of how heavy it is.
7.25 for me. It's alright. Not the greatest thing. I mean, if you like this style of music, it's worthy of a purchase. So this is Impending Doom's Death Will Reign. Check it out. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you around while I just rub my big man nipples.
fuck.